Hello everyone and welcome back to Classic Comics. So today I'm going to be doing a review of the first episode of Star Trek Picard. And I don't know how I'm going to get through this one. So, okay, yes, so I assume that those of you who are watching this video, I'm assuming most of you are at least somewhat familiar with Star Trek. You know what it is, you know who Jean-Luc Picard is, you know what a Romulan is, etc. So, the first episode is called Remembrance. And so we start off with this very cool shot of the Enterprise D. And then the camera moves into 10 forward. And we see in 10 forward, Data and Picard are playing poker. And they're having a discussion, and Data looks really weird. Data looks like he was stung by a bee and he had an allergic reaction or something. He's very puffy, his hair's all weird. The de-aging on him wasn't very good at all. And Data notes that Picard is drawing out the game, and Picard admits that Data's right because he doesn't want the game to end. And then out of the window you see Mars. And then you see a bunch of explosions on Mars, and then Picard wakes up and it was all a dream. And he wakes up, he's on his estate, his family estate that we saw in that episode of Next Generation Family, where he went back there and we saw his brother and his nephew and all that. Now then we go to Boston, and we meet Dodge. And Dodge is this young woman, and she's having a date with her boyfriend. And they're attacked by a bunch of guys in black who bust in, and then they kill the boyfriend. They kill him by throwing a knife at him and killing him with a knife. Why? And then they turn on Dodge and they start beating the crap out of her and talking about, is she activated? Is she activated? She's not activated, is she? And they're beating her up again. I mean, why are they beating her? This is the 24th century. You have phasers. Just stun her. Just stun the boyfriend or even phase her. And why are you using knives? Why are you using knives and bare fists? This is stupid. And anyway, then Dodge, big surprise, she activates and she proceeds to beat the hell out of all the attackers and kill them all. Then she goes on the run. Then we go back to Picard at his estate. And it turns out he's got a bunch of Romulans who are working as his servants, basically, on his estate. They're tending his vineyards. They're cleaning his house. And then Picard he's scheduled to have this interview, and he's pissed off because he doesn't want to do it. But anyway, he does the interview, and the woman who's interviewing him, of course, is real snarky. And she asks, why did he retire all those years ago? And then we get the backstory. And the backstory is Picard tried to spearhead the rescue effort to save the Romulans when their sun was going to go nova. But then, now, they had made a bunch of data androids that then attacked the shipyards on Mars where the rescue ships were being made and destroyed them all. And after the rescue ships were destroyed, Starfleet basically said, forget it. It's not worth the trouble. And Picard was outraged that they wouldn't do more to help the Romulans, because, the poor Romulans, they're so helpless. And he resigned in protest. So Picard gets all pissed off. He goes on a little rant and basically says, Orange Man bad, and then storms out and goes home. And when he gets back to his state, Dodge is there. Out of nowhere. Somehow she just knew where he lived and sought him out. And says that she went to find him because she knew she would be safe with him. And of course Picard's like, oh yes, I agree. And he lets her stay at his place. Okay. But then the next morning, he finds out that during the middle of the night, she ran off. So she sought him out. She went from Boston to France to be with him because she would be safe with him. But then as soon as she gets there, like with an hour, she turns around and leaves again and goes away. Why? Who the hell knows? This episode, nobody does anything that makes any sense. They just do stuff because the plot calls for them to do it. Not because it makes any sense for them, not because it fits their character. They just go from point A to point B or what have you. So then Picard goes to Starfleet Academy in San Francisco, and he visits the Starfleet archives, and he basically looks up a bunch of stuff that I guess are mementos from his Starfleet career. And amongst them is this painting that Data had made called Daughter. That's the name of the painting, and of course it's a picture of Daj. Because, of course. Now, you would think that if he had made a painting back in his Enterprise days, Data would have made a picture of Lal, his actual daughter from the Enterprise days. She appeared in the episode The Offspring, I believe it was. He had a daughter. So anyway, Picard leaves, and he's heading back home, but then Daj shows up again, out of nowhere. And he tells her that she's related to Data, somehow. And then the guys in black show up again and attack. And they actually do use disruptors this time. They're using beam weapons instead of just trying to, beat them all up with their hands. And then, of course, Daj goes all Neo and starts beating the crap out of all of them. And despite the fact that this is happening at Starfleet headquarters, the heart of Starfleet, there is no security anywhere. And then just to make it even dumber, then one of these attackers, who is a Romulan, pretty sure it's a Romulan, then spits blood on Daj. And it's acid. So apparently now the Romulans have acid blood now. Like a xenomorph. And then some of the acid gets onto one of the disruptors, which causes the disruptor to explode. And it blows up Daj and kills her. And Picard gets thrown seriously about 30 feet back and then lands, just on bare concrete. And he gets knocked out. He wakes up. He's back at his estate in France again. Because somehow, even though he's like 97 years old, and he was thrown 30 feet and landed on bare concrete, he really doesn't have any serious injuries. I mean, what? Wouldn't they have taken him to a hospital? You've got a 90-something-year-old man who's unconscious. Take him to a hospital. No. Because that would, that would require them to that would make sense. That would make sense. So then Picard travels to the Daystrom Institute in Okinawa. And he meets with this doctor named Dr. Girardi, who reveals that Daj may be Data's daughter through, she was created by Bruce Maddox. Now, those who will remember, in the episode The Measure of a Man in the second season of Next Generation, the Starfleet scientist named Bruce Maddox wants to mass produce Datas. Because Data's supposed to be, at that point it was thought that Data was unique. He was the only one of his kind. Now later we find out that's not really true, but at the time that's what everyone thought. So Maddox wants to mass produce Datas. A data for every starship is kind of how he pitches it. Imagine every starship in Starfleet having a Data on board. But in order to do this, he would basically have to dismantle Data, take him apart. He's got to take him apart to figure out what makes him tick before he can make new ones. And this would effectively, erase Data's memories along the way. Effectively, it would, kill him, basically. And of course, Data resists this. He doesn't want this to happen. And the whole episode is about, being a machine. Does Data have rights? Is he a person? And of course, in the end, it comes down on the side of, yes, he is a person, he is sentient, and he has the rights that any other individual would have. And he declines the experiment. Now, in the last Star Trek film, the last Next Generation Star Trek film, Star Trek Nemesis, Data was destroyed. But before he was destroyed, there was another version of Data called Before. As in, before, because he was made before Data. Yeah. And had his knowledge and memories downloaded into Before. And at the end of the movie, they kind of hint that, Before is starting to assimilate Data's memories and all this. And so he's eventually going to become Data. Now, what we learn in this episode is, well, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? I don't know, cause reasons. Like with so many other things in the show, cause reasons. We can't be bothered to give an explanation. And so B4 was dismantled and put into storage. Somehow or another, and this is how they clone Data. This is how Maddox cloned Data. So somehow he got a positron from Data's neural net. They always said on the show that he had a positronic brain. And it was this technology that, it was this rare breakthrough technology that no one but Dr. Soong, the guy that created Data, could understand. So he took one of these positrons and then used that to create a clone of Data's brain. And then somehow use that to create this clone of Data, who is basically a human female with a positronic brain in her head. And I mean, this show is so goddamn stupid. It is just ridiculous. This makes no sense at all. A positron is basically just an anti-electron, right? It's an electron, but it's got a positive charge instead of a negative charge. It's a subatomic particle. Okay, you can't. How are you gonna grow something from a positron? It makes no sense. They're behaving as if positrons are like cells in a human body, where each cell in your body has basically carries a complete copy of your DNA. And that's how cloning's supposed to work. You use that cell to basically get the DNA working, and then that creates a whole new copy of the organism that you originally had. But positrons, they're subatomic particles. It's just a particle with a positive charge. It doesn't have a copy of anything in it. So how do you grow something from it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It's like me saying, "Oh, I'm going to take an electron and grow a computer." I mean, it makes no sense. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so anyway, we find out that these clones, these positronic clones, they're made in pairs. Why? Because reasons. That's why. Because reasons. So now basically Dodge has an identical twin, and this identical twin is working to help the Romulans salvage a damaged Borg cube for something. For something. And that's basically where the episode ends. So, where to begin with this crap? Okay. This show is moronic. I mean, seriously, it is totally moronic. It makes no sense. It clearly feels like this show was written. It's been written and then rewritten at least twice, I think. Because it seems like there are at least two different shows that are kind of being squashed together here. There's a show about Picard and the whole thing with the evacuation of Romulus. and the androids, and then there's this other show about the Borg. I don't know. And Star Trek, CBS Star Trek has been dumb right from the start. As I said, I'm not going to go into all the plot issues with the JJ Star Trek movies. That's a whole other video. But CBS Star Trek has just been dumb right from the start. And that's not what Star Trek is. It's not what Star Trek has ever been. So, since the beginning, if you look at the beginnings of science fiction, and of course there are differing attitudes about where sci-fi started. Generally, it's viewed to have started, I think, kind of with H.G. Wells. Some will say with Jules Verne. Some will even go back to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And there are good arguments for all of them. But the point I'm getting at here is that originally, when science fiction started in novels, it was generally about high concepts, about big ideas, and then, creating these sort of allegories about the world around us. Like H.G. Wells with War of the Worlds, right? It was an allegory about British imperialism, really. Now, it was never really that much about the characters, particularly about the antagonists, because the antagonists, they tended to be pretty bland and forgettable, frankly. I mean, who are the bad guys in War of the Worlds? The Martians. Yeah, who's the antagonist? You don't really remember. I don't remember. Who was the antagonist in 2000 Leagues Under the Sea? Captain Nemo. Who were the antagonists? I remember one of them was a sailor named Ned Land, and there were a couple others. I couldn't tell you who else. But again, back then, in those early days of science fiction, it was about these big ideas, about high concepts. And then another strain of science fiction came along. And I think it pretty much started with Edgar Rice Burroughs. Now, maybe there was somebody else before him that I just don't know about. But I'm pretty sure that he was pretty much the first guy who basically created a new strain of science fiction where he took kind of classic sort of swashbuckling adventures and he dressed them up with sci-fi trappings and created, this sort of heroic, adventuresome strain of science fiction that was about, the main character, about the heroes and about their conflicts and lots of daring do, let's say. And from Edgar Rice Burroughs, from John Carter, we get then Buck Rogers, then we get Flash Gordon, and on up till, we get to Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, and then others from there, like Guardians of the Galaxy. And then you had this other strain of science fiction, again, started by people like H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, that then continued on from them through Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, which were about these big concepts, these big ideas. That leads us to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then to... what's a more recent example? Maybe like Interstellar, something like that, I guess. Now, Star Trek always sought to kind of straddle the line, sort of walk a middle ground between those two, taking the big ideas, the high concepts, the allegories about, human nature and the human condition, and marrying them with the swashbuckling adventuring stuff. And most of the time, Star Trek has been pretty successful at it, walking that sort of middle road, and it was a winning formula. Then along came J.J. Abrams and his whole crew of minions. And I'm talking about Kurtzman, I'm talking about Carlton Cuse, I'm talking about Robert Orsi, I'm talking about frickin' Lindelof. And he got a hold of Star Trek and basically turned it into pretty much just the swashbuckling adventure stuff. But it's worse than that, you know, because I kind of saw that coming. I was like, well, this is going to be really just, you know, pew pew and explosions and stuff, you know, but, you know, which is unfortunate, but, you know, we'll see how it is. But it turns out it's worse than that. It's not just like action adventure hero stuff. It's stupid action hero adventure stuff. Starting with that first Star Trek film and going from there, everything that this bunch has been involved with Star Trek, the plots are nonsensical. They characters are constantly doing things that make no sense. Things happen because they need to happen, not because it's something that the characters should do or would do. They just need to do it because then you have to do that in order to get from point A to point B. And one of the most frustrating things about this whole mess is how bad the science is in this science fiction show. Now, to be fair, they've always fudged, you know, science to a degree. You know, I mean, the Enterprise always has artificial gravity, you know. They always have artificial gravity. They can go from motionless to light speed. And the people on board the ship, they don't even move because they've got inertial dampeners or whatever. But it's just at a whole new level with JJ Trek. The writers on this show don't even seem to understand basic scientific concepts, stuff that a middle school student would know. Like there's no sound in space. The people writing the show they're not capable of the task. They're not that smart. They're not that clever. They're not up to it. It's, like I say, this show is like Battlefield Earth level stupid. It's that bad. And I don't know. I don't know where Star Trek goes from here. But it's not going anywhere good. That's for sure. There's, how many episodes are of this crap? I think there's, is there like 8 episodes? I don't even remember. But it's clear that they're going to be, it's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So, you know what? If you're contemplating seeing the show, if you're contemplating getting CBS All Access, don't do it. It's not worth it. I'm lucky I have someone who has this and lets me watch it with him, so I don't have to pay for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to review this crap. And I recommend you don't get it. It's just the worst. And yeah, I guess we'll just stop there. So, if you've seen Picard, what did you think? Let me know in the comments. Or you can hit me up on Twitter. My handle is @ComicsClassic. And if you would, please like this video before you go. And please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.